guys, I'm Mike, and your local coffee shop, your favorite specialty coffee shop, might be in real big trouble this year. I expect, unfortunately, hundreds of local coffee shops across the United States to potentially close this year. It's bad news. Here's why. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome to Coffeeshop Vibes. I'm typically here talking about different coffees. I love talking about espresso. I'm typically in a good mood and happy to help enhance your specialty coffee shop experience. That's what the whole premise of this show is, to teach you tricks, insights about specialty coffee and specialty coffee shops. But I'd be not remiss, but I just have to tell you, because probably a lot of people aren't. You might have heard that coffee prices are through the roof and that there's panic buying or something along those lines. I actually just did a video on that if you want to check that out. But long story short, there's actually three things right now that are really hurting, especially coffee shops, and it's going to be really bad news. And the coffee prices, of course, is the number one thing. And the reason the prices are sky high, they're a record high for coffee prices. They were at a record high to end last year, and then I think they set the record 14 days in a row for the coffee market, which is even the cheap market price, right? The coffees we sell here are way at a premium to that price, but that raises the price of those coffees. There's been drought in Brazil and Vietnam, the two largest coffee producing regions in the world. Like I said, we don't even use coffee from those countries, but that's lifting up the whole market by not like, it's not like 20%, it's like 130%, 120%. And that's going to have huge ramifications on coffee, which is already a pretty fine margin business. Long story short, drought in those countries are going to keep prices elevated, probably, depending on how the crop comes in this year. They'll keep prices elevated into next year, which might be too much for coffee shops to handle, especially some. So that is a major, major concern. And that's if things stabilize, right? They could ultimately go higher based on other factors, tariffs, who knows what's going to happen this coming year. But this is a major, major concern. And it actually hasn't even hit. Your coffee prices have gone up probably because of last year's increases in coffee prices. The panic buying in the January and February coffee market volatility hasn't hit. That won't hit for a couple months, and that's really going to start to have a huge impact on local coffee shops. Number two, people don't realize this. The weather, it's snowing out here right now. It's going to mean our business is probably going to be cut 30% today. Number three is there's been a flu pandemic across the East Coast. The East Coast, which is the population center of the United States, for the Mississippi East, has been really, really cold. And that has totally affected businesses and particularly especially coffee shops where they have walk-up clientele, etc. Now, I know some scenarios will be different. But when someone comes to the coffee shop 2 times a week, same with the flu, right? So many, I've never seen, this is worse than COVID, in my opinion, of people saying they've been out. Even at the peak of COVID, at least here. But when people have the flu or they don't want to come in because it's 16 below or 0, which is going to be next week, we've got almost a month without seeing temperatures above freezing. That's super impactful. We haven't had a winter like that for a long time. But long story short, that maybe a person comes to the coffee shop 3 times a week or 2 times a week, and because of the weather, because of illness, they come once. And that's been so prolonged with the long cold stretch, right? They don't come back. Doesn't mean like they're going to buy 3 the next week. It's not really how it works because it's not like an essential. It's a luxury item. So when you lose business because of a snowy day like today or that cold weather, right, you lose it. That's the fact for most small businesses, bakeries, coffee shops, restaurant, etc. They don't double up the next week. So those factors, along with this rising coffee prices, is already squeezing a really small, really tight margin industry. So yeah, it's really bad news for coffee shops, but I don't think people sometimes understand just how impactful a local coffee shop is to the community. People might say, well, the coffee shop's busy. Let me explain to you the coffee business real quick because, we started, if you know our backstory, it's quite an interesting story, right? We started the coffee company about 6 years ago, started the coffee shop, we're coming up on 5 years ago. I was working remotely from Silicon Valley. My wife was in healthcare. We were pregnant with twins at the time. We're like, dive in. We want to do this for our community. This was we started the first specialty coffee shop in our county, in history of our county, in a small town in Western PA. And we really dove headfirst into understanding the coffee industry and crafting, great coffees. And long story short, right, there's so many unknowns people don't realize about the coffee industry. We've learned them a lot over the last 6 years. But the margins, let me explain 2 things about coffee shops and why they're super important to an industry. People think, well, And the margins are pretty low, just so you know, in a coffee shop. The coffee shop has a much, much bigger impact on the community, right? Because if you go to our small town here in Western PA, actually 40% of the population lives below poverty. It's a very, that's why there wasn't a specialty coffee shop. And we actually did it to the next level, where we said we're gonna, we serve some of the finest coffees in America. We roast some of the finest coffees in America, rotate these single origins. We have coffees on drip some days that we sell at a loss because they're just like small batch auction coffees. But we wanted to create just a unique vibe to change the vibe of our town, right? And there are many empty storefronts in our town. But when we opened the coffee shop, right, it had a major impact on the town, where actually people, it impacted property values in town, because now there's a specialty coffee shop. You can say any trendy neighborhood in the city now has the same caliber of a coffee shop in this small town, right? Not only that, there was a handful, actually women-owned businesses like Ispirare, 5 or 6 opened up around the coffee shop. We are the #1 business, or most visited business, on our main street. So that actually has opened the door for others. There's now, I think, a brewery being ready to open down the street, or sometime within the next 6 months, I hope. But it has laid the groundwork for all these things, right? And while the margins and the cost, the impact to us financially is less than what the impact for the town has been. So it's been a great job. It's been a great deal for the town. And this is the case with most specialty coffee shops. They open up, they start bringing people into the neighborhood, and then other businesses follow. Many restaurateurs have said, hey, follow the coffee. And that's why, because it has impacts. It brings people into town, and it's really the first typical set, or brings people into your neighborhood. First typical step into revitalizing a neighborhood in a lot of these commercial districts is getting a good quality specialty coffee shop. So that is the impact that a specialty coffee shop has. If you want to learn more about how you can help your specialty coffee, and I am 100% serious. Like I said, I know I'm pretty upbeat all the time, but I'm 100% serious. The price of coffee is going to it's going to be a tremendous burden. And a coffee shop making $20,000 or $30,000 a year now, right? $40,000. The owners or whatnot might be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't deal with this volatility. I don't want to have a bad year. Yeah, heck, I could probably break even this year, but it's a lot of work to break even, right? So long story short, next week I'll do another video. Make sure you subscribe on how you can help a specialty coffee shop. I know this was a ramble, but I really wanted to put out there. There's not industry leader when it comes to specialty coffee. There's not really coffee YouTubers. There's a guy in England and a couple like baristas, but there's nobody who owns a coffee shop and really speaks for the specialty coffee industry. And I wanted to do my part into letting you know that it is bad. It's going to get worse. And there are and there's some things you can do if you want to keep your specialty coffee shop, or ways to promote a specialty coffee shop. Please consider working or going to a specialty coffee shop, bypassing a chain store. As I said, the impact that they have on a community, well, it's really exponential. And I always say, hey, if we would have more, if people would bypass the former donut chain in town, right, and come here, we would be able to do more things. I'd love to open a boutique hotel. I could do that with 10 more customers a day, something like that, right? You don't realize the impact that the coffee shops can have, or what they can lead to if they're well supported in a community. Anyway, guys, long story short, make sure you subscribe and just be mindful of what's going on in the coffee industry. We've never seen anything like this in really the history of specialty coffee shops since they started popping up in the 80s and 90s. All right, guys, take care, live inspired, best to you, and be safe.